exhibit greater mortality than non-depressed animals. In this study, we did plotted the monkeys in the quartiles of depression, so this is the most depressed quartile. There were 9 animals, 5 of 9 animals died before the end of the study in that quartile, where there was only 1 or 2 in B, so that was devastating, actually, to the study. It was a really terrible outcome. And this is a summary of all of that, stressed versus depressed. And where you see red is where it's different between subordinates and depressed animals, and where you see black or white is the same. And so what you can see is that the differences between stressed subordinates and depressed animals really congregate in the area of behavior and probably neurobiology. So what I think is that human and non-human primates exhibit 2 states. I believe that about the monkeys, that our stressed monkeys are very different than our depressed monkeys, and that those 2 states, stressed and depressed, can be differentiated. There are similarities in traditional stress-responsive systems, which is part of the rationale for using stress models to study depression. But there are differences, and maybe important differences in behavior and neurobiology and in severity of some of the perturbations. I think rodent models in the past haven't discriminated very well between stressed states and depressive states, and that might be really helpful way to go to help us both understand the relationship between stress and depression and also to discover novel therapeutic targets. We will need to be able to make those discriminations better. And I will say that I think a primate model is going to be necessary to integrate subcortical and cortical regions involved in this depression neural network. And I think that's the end. I want to point out that I told you about a lot of research over a long number of years, and so many people have contributed, made great intellectual contributions, both at Wake Forest, these are folks from Wake Forest and from other institutions. These are all students and technicians who actually collected the data and really made this possible. And I'll also thank the funding agencies, National Heart and Blood Institute, NIMH, and the Carter Foundation. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer questions. We are just beginning to characterize animals as either purely anxious, purely depressed, or exhibiting both. But I can tell you that it seems to me, they're highly comorbid in the human population. I think that there's more of a separation in our monkeys. I don't know why that's true, but there's far less animals that exhibit both kinds of behavior and far more that exhibit more purely depressive behavior and more purely anxious behavior. So we'll have to sort of see how that pans out, what we're kind of new in that area. Yes.
So with the depressed monkeys, they have that behavioral slumping posture, but then a lot of the other behaviors improve in terms of social contact time and all that kind of stuff. So in some ways, I'm interpreting that the depressive behavior is actually adaptive. It has consequences, but it's improved their social situation. Is that right?
Well, so what you're getting at is the body contact thing.
And there were multiple ones, right? Between the subordinate and the depressed, there were a bunch of red ones on the thing.
Well, meaning that subordinates and depressed animals differ. And the big differences are, subordinates, there's this antagonistic thing going on. And so the aggressive, submissive differences are more profound. And they're, ostracized, and it's actively, there's, in the depressed monkeys, they don't interact much. And so their whole, if we looked at, I probably put that up there somewhere, it's just whole rates of all kinds of social interaction is very low. The one that stands out is this body contact, and they do sit in body contact a lot. And that's interesting, I think, for two reasons. One is that the other monkeys in the group tolerate that behavior. So they tolerate this slumped over monkey leaning up against them for long hours at a time. And, that's not, we don't really think of the cats as being really very, nice. We think of them as being more, not very tolerant, actually. And so it's striking to me that they tolerate that. And then the flip side is what's going on with the depressed monkey. Why is she doing that? And I don't know. I have two ideas about it. And one is their activity levels are so low, their physical activity levels are so low, that I wonder if they're cold and that it's a way to maintain some body heat. And the second, though, that I think is perhaps important is that you saw how unresponsive she was to this person who's right in front of her and this threat. I think that what happens is if that monkey startles, the depressed monkey will startle and look up and pay attention. And so she's sort of, whether purposely or not, I would know, but she's sort of using this other monkey as a threat warning system. And this one monkey is not really apparently detecting well environmental events. So,
but in terms of the tolerance, would a monkey tolerate, like even if you injected one of them with LPS or something like that and had sickness behavior, how would the other monkeys respond? Would they be tolerant or more?
what do you think? Sometimes they really pound on sick animals. And so it might be a really, it might be a test of the LPS model. If depressed or if sick. I just don't know. Monkeys do tend not to be nice to monkeys that are ill in their social groups, though I will say that.
In relation to some of our Emory investigators, have you tried to use progesterone in your depressed patients in relation to what's going on with using progesterone for stroke patients? And I understand they still don't know the mechanism there. Can you postulate? And secondly, have you tried to do any cytokine studies in your model? And Andy Miller and his group.
Right. Okay, progesterone first. What I can tell you about progesterone comes only from a crossover study. It was those overactimized females actually participated in this study, and they were treated. They were overactimized males. They had various hormone replacement regimens, and estrogen plus progestin, and different kinds of progestin. And we kept track of the depressive behavior throughout each, and they didn't change at all throughout. Depressed monkeys were depressed monkeys right from the get-go. No hormone replacement regimen, no change that behavior. So, but they're overactimized, and so that's not exactly what's going on in the way that progesterone is used in human beings. But that's the only relevant data that I have to date about that. I can tell you when you give progesterone to monkeys, though, it makes them very sleepy. They get quite lethargic when you use physiologic progesterone. So that is one thing that does change. As far as the cytokines go, we are, in fact, very interested in them. And I'll remind you that what we have done is create a pro-inflammatory situation for all the animals because of the diet. The diet is pro-inflammatory in nature because it has fat, cholesterol in it. And so that seems to be, if that pro-inflammatory background is important, then it may be necessary but not sufficient. In other words, it's not the only thing that's driving this behavior. But it might be that in animals that are susceptible to depression, if they're also eating this diet, then you're going to see the depressive phenotype. And that makes sense to me, this kind of additive insults, if you will. That makes sense to me because I know that other primate facilities that feed much healthier diets don't see so much depression. So it's indirect evidence.
But in relation to diet, diet is so general.
Mhm.
I mean, there's good data now in the microbiome story that it's, you know, the gut agents that may be the guides for pro-inflammation or
Yes.
anti-inflammation.
Right.
And so as an infectious disease person, I want to look at the real source, not the general source, diet or cytokines and so on.
Right, right. So, so what I can tell you is, in this model in which they're all eating this diet, we do see some associations with depression and markers of inflammation. It's not really profound. There's a mild, it's statistically significant, but a mild correlation with CRP. What they do have, which is interesting, is more MCP1 and its gene expression in the artery wall. So that's interesting. It's not just circulating, but it's actually in tissue. And besides that, all the other cytokines, name one and I can tell you, they're not different. But I think it's because there's this basic background of information due to the diet. As far as not wanting to treat, you know, this kind of global, you know, the diet is, of course, thought to affect the translocation of going on in the gut. And so that may in fact be a critical component and different between a healthy diet or a child diet and the kind of diets we feed. I mean, it's an empirical question.
But it is very simple for you to get stool on these animals and send them to NIH,
Yeah.
who's looking at all these microbiome
Yes,
genetically and
yes,
see what kind of bacteria are involved.
yes,
It's so simple. They should be able to do it for you free.
they should. I'll get you to testify to that.
A super quick question. Was your placebo-controlled studies double-blind?
The placebo-controlled
Did the person providing? Did the person know what they were giving the animals?
No, but they can tell by the behavior. So, yeah, technically they were blinded, but what I didn't, just because of time, what I didn't show you is that Zoloft actually had massive effects on behavior. It wasn't just that it lowered anxiety, it reduced aggression and increased affiliation. These were the happiest, most calm, healthiest. And they really should put it in the water. Water in the rock.
But more depressed, yeah.
But it didn't, still depressed, but you know, in terms of angst, happily depressed, very low angst. So because there were these massive changes in behavior, you know, they unfortunately. Yes.
I was wondering with the surgery mental study, I was wondering if you saw any changes in ovarian function?
In the
ovarian function?
Zoloft study, yeah. Not yet. The first pass doesn't look like there's a difference, but I'm really very interested in that. I need to get much more detailed. So if you just count number of menses in the first 18 months and second 18 months, no, and no difference. And same with peak luteal phase progesterone. But we haven't gotten really, got down and dissected that data. So I think that it merits quite a bit more inspection, and it's a good question.
Cheryl, over the course of the study, you see that what you need is an parametric comparison of dominant, subordinate, on-axis, and depressed and non-depressed. Clearly, although in sense as well, there are dominant monkeys in depressed. They need to accumulate enough data to really,
Right.
statistically examine this
So
interaction.
we now have 3 completed studies. There's about 120 animals. 40% overall is in depressive behavior. You can kind of do the math. 60% of subordinates. So it's just at the end of this study where we might be in position to finally do a meta-analysis and actually tease those before apart. But up until now, we just haven't had enough depressed dominance, and we haven't enough non-depressed subordinates, but depressed dominants is the smallest sum. But I think you saw 2 and 16, so out of 120, you know, if half of them fall in the high tower, half of them, it's still not going to be a huge number, but I think we're fine.
So I think the key is, I mean, we all, particularly your memories and our history, think that stress is a precipitating factor.
Yes.
And so with these dominant monkeys, and I would argue too that even our dominant rhesus monkeys in Lawrenceville, they're not stress-free.
Right.
So there's got to be something that we can identify what's unique about those animals that may be susceptible
Uh-huh.
to.
Yep, yep. And I think that the neat thing about it is that the brains of all of the animals are in the freezer still, and from all 3 studies, and as well as other, you know, blood and stuff, so tissues. So it's even possible that we could go back and formulate questions that are, you know, gene expression based, at least, if not gene expression. I think